and welcome to the Chesed Marriage Podcast. We have some special guests with us today that are going to just share what's on their heart. And this couple is very special to me specifically because they've known me literally my whole life.
I think so.
Literally my whole life. So it's special to see, it's special to have them here and to have them willing just to share what their marriage story looks like. If you guys will introduce yourselves.
I'm Amy.
And I'm Joshua.
And we started out knowing each other because we went to the Christian Center in West Columbia together. Of course, there's a little bit of age difference. Not much. Was it 10?
I'm 43.
Yeah, okay, not much. So there's 6 years difference between us. You can do the math on that.
And he's much older.
I'm 5 years older than her.
So whenever they came in, I actually told them, I was like, whenever I was thinking about the podcast today, I thought back to when I was little. And I've always done music. I mean, music has always been a thing. And Josh has always been in music as well. And I thought back to when I was in praise and worship at the Christian Center. And I told Josh, I was like, Josh, you were my worship leader when I was like 8, 9, 10. He was like, I was.
He was my worship leader when I was 5 or 6.
Too. And it was just, I started thinking about a song, some of the songs that I sang, but those songs, and I actually started to sing one because it just, I don't know, whenever you grow kids up, listening to music, it's very easy to memorize music. And so, both of you have been very precious in my life, and just I'm hoping that in the episode as we progress, that Amy will share something very tender that both of us share with our kiddos. But I would like to start with just how you guys met, obviously at church, but how you guys met, and we'll just go from there.
Well, we did meet at church because we went to the same church, and both of our families were very involved in church. So we would go every time the doors were open, Sunday morning. We even had Sunday night services and Wednesday night services. And we were involved in different opportunities to be up at church and be involved. As a teenager, I was homeschooled, so that was my opportunity to get out and be around other people that were not related to me.
Or that looked like you. Yeah. You guys all favor. The Davenport family line all favors.
So we spent a lot of time at church, and we were always involved in ministry. I was involved in kids ministry starting as a teenager. So I would help with the kindergartners, and that was a really neat thing about the church at that time, is they would let the teenagers come in and help with we weren't the main teachers or anything, but we would be able to help, and then we would help on bus routes and different things like that. And so we kind of grew up not as best friends, or our families weren't necessarily in everybody's at everybody's house all the time, but we knew who each other were.
Right, and we don't really know when we met.
Yeah.
Like I remember knowing him when I was like 6. Mm-hmm. And he would have been like 11.
Yeah.
I think, because didn't you start leading in kids church when you were like 10 or 11?
No, it's a little older than that,
but I remember him then. Mm-hmm. But we don't have like a meeting time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we just grew up going to church together.
Yeah. And I actually remember your dad being my Sunday school.
Your 4 and 5 year old teacher.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. James Davenport, who is with Jesus.
Yes.
But I remember him being so, he was, I think the word that I could put just on him was incredibly, miraculously patient with children, because
that's where he gets it from.
Well, I do want to ask, we will get to it later, but that was one of the main topics, or one of the big things that I would like to hear from you guys, is because of your family. But let's talk about okay, so how long have you been married?
Tomorrow, 22 years.
Wow! Congratulations. That's amazing.
Yeah, so we started dating after I graduated high school. So, funny quip about us, Josh was my senior year music teacher in high school. Mm-hmm. We were not dating. People are going to freak out.
People are going to freak out. No, because you said that you started dating when you graduated.
Yeah. We actually went on a missions trip together. We weren't dating, but then after the mission trip, we were dating.
Wow.
It was like a few weeks after.
Yeah. Was it to Mexico?
Yeah.
No, we went to
too.
Europe. We went to Belgium and
that's right.
London. Yeah. So the missionary that we helped in Belgium still says that we fell in love in Belgium.
Oh, wow. Who wouldn't? It's Belgium.
I mean, it's Belgium.
It's Belgium. It was the chocolates.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
wow.
we started dating in July of 2000.
Wow.
Then we got engaged in February of 2021 or 21, not 21, 2001. And then we were engaged for 14 months.
Oh, and then the wait. And then the wait.
That was
okay, so let's talk about that because there's, I'm sure there's going to be couples that, so this might get sticky, but what would you advise to couples that maybe, and I know you guys did it right, you waited. Mm-hmm. So how could you encourage someone that maybe didn't wait and they want to find, Lord, how can we go back to, I guess Siri calls it re-virginizing their mind or like going back to making it as if it was for the first time? Because I think nowadays marriage is just kind of, we've talked about this before, but what that means, that engagement time and the preparation for getting married and having that opportunity and, the whole topic of sex comes in and people, especially younger ones, I think that's why they're getting married older and older. People are getting married older and older.
Yeah.
So what would you tell them and encourage them that why it's worth it? But also if they've already crossed that line, what they can do in their marriage to keep it wholesome and exciting and beautiful.
Well, first off, I think it's best to go through life with the assumption that God's plan is always best. And I don't always understand God's plan, but I know that God's plan is best, and I trust Him to lead me in the best way that I should go. So I don't have really a whole lot to say for people that didn't follow God in that aspect of their life, because I don't really know.
Yeah, but we do know that He's the forgiver and redeemer.
I know that also when you think God's plan is always best, you always think it's like you're on a road trip, and if you get on the wrong path, you can always get back. It reminds me of going on a trip with my brother. He was living in Arizona, and we were driving there, and we stopped for something, and then got back on the highway. And went I'm pretty sure I was driving because we went the wrong direction on the interstate for a good 20 miles.
Oh, man.
Before anybody, because nobody realized that, hey, shouldn't that sign be saying west? No, we're going back east. We've already been here before.
That's awesome.
That's familiar.
The same thing is true with our Christian walk and our life is it's not a choice that you make once and you don't get to redo it. You don't actually get to redo it because that time was lost. Going that wrong direction was lost. But the best thing to do was to turn around and start going the right direction.
That's beautiful. Wow.
Something Megan and I have been talking about in the last week or so is in different aspects of your life, you have different periods that are attached, right? So like with stewardship, every paycheck's a new test. Mm-hmm. Right? And every morning, if you're struggling with time management or words or whatever, every day that you wake up is a new opportunity to make the right choice, right? Mm-hmm. And so you have this opportunity every day to re-choose the path, and you can't go back and change what you did or didn't do the day before, or even a week before, but you can choose what you're going to do that day. And in choosing so in that moment, then you start that redirection back because it's a choice to pursue God. Right?
Yeah, it is.
And like when we were in the waiting, though, we had already set up boundaries. Like, we're not going to be in a house together by ourselves. Like,
and
that's asking for trouble.
You were how old? Like 20s?
So I was 20 when we got married, and he was 25. So, but we were like, this is going to end badly if we are in a house together by ourselves.
Yeah.
And it's not because, like, we were evil people. It's because we loved each other so much. And I think God creates that in you to draw you to your spouse. But so if we were in that position of spouses before we were spouses, we knew that could end in a way we didn't want it to. And we had to decide that ahead of time. Like, you can't decide that
in the moment
because
you won't make the right decision necessarily.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, that's prudence, right? It's making a wise choice. It's wisdom as well. You're deciding what you're going to do before you're in the situation, so the stress and the pressure of the situation doesn't force you to choose an incorrect decision.
Right.
But while you don't have the pressure and you have a clear head and you have a clear mind, you can make the decision. And it also shows each other, if you don't respect me in this aspect, how are you going to respect me later? Because if we chose this and now you're trying to force me to compromise, what's going to happen later on, right?
Right.
That's true. The next question that I had was, and I'm if you're unfamiliar with their family, they have quite a large family.
It only depends on who you compare.
That's very true.
It's a relative term.
Large is a relative term.
Okay, well, they outnumber us a little bit. So, I would love to hear. I would like for you guys to share when you guys started to grow your family, and then something. And I do want to get to it.
Okay.
But something that I do have, because I'm in it right now with my littles, and that's discipline and structure. Yeah. So I would love to hear it because both of you are in ministry.
Yes.
Josh is actually our children's worship leader. So he's with our kiddos. Is it the 2nd through 5th grade or?
Well,
kindergarten
through 5th grade.
Through 5th grade.
Okay. So he's already pouring into my kids. He's going to get to pour into the twins here pretty soon. But Amy has been with my littles. She's been with all of my kids. She's seen all of my kids. So
Since Sophie was a baby.
And like I said, one of her kiddos and my Sophie share something that I really want to touch on because it's something that we're walking out right now. But also, if you don't mind, just sharing your family story and then how you guys structured your home as far as discipline in a godly way, because all of your kids are serving the Lord as of right now.
Yeah. So when we got married, we said, we'll have 1 or 2 kids and we'll wait 5 years to have the first one. So my oldest son was born a year and 2 weeks after we got married. God knew better than we did.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. He's awesome too.
And then 18 months later, we had a daughter.
Oh, wow.
And then 6 months later, we had a baby in heaven. And then, so 18 months from my daughter to my next daughter. So there was a baby in heaven in between there. And then 3 days less than a year later, we had another daughter. And then 2 years later, we had a son. And then 2 years later, we had another son. So in 9 years, we had 6 kids and a baby in heaven.
Yeah. So we've known people that had their kids really spaced apart, and we decided that is not what we want to do.
It's like a Band-Aid, just rip it off.
Just do it all at the same time.
I don't want to be that old and have young kids.
Well, because his family has 6 kids too. Like his before us, his family but they had 3, and then a 13-year gap.
10-year gap.
10-year gap, and then 3 more. So he has a little sister who is 18 years younger than you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and but you
like
you also
having
had
a
a
kid
family.
Right
But you also had a family. You grew up with 3, right?
So it was me and my brother, and then an 11-year gap of my sister.
Yeah, wow. Okay, so please share with how that worked in your house.
It was always loud.
We even threw our kids in there for a couple of times.
I was like, what does it matter? Just bring them over.
I would text Amy and I'd be like, can you watch the kids tonight? We don't have anybody to keep the kids.
Sure.
And she's like, sure, what's 2 more? Just bring them. Oh, bless.
I don't even know they're here.
The other ones will watch them. It'll be fine.
Oh my gosh, it was awesome. Yeah, share that because I'm walking through a very difficult season right now with the twins.
They're 4, right?
They will be in
They're
October.
Almost. Okay.
Tyrant 3s.
So the hardest part for us was when we kept adding 1 more, which it wasn't like, I know that sounds crazy, but we weren't actually planning all of our kids. It's just the Lord blessed us when he did. So, when our 4th kid was born, my son was not 4 yet. My oldest son was not 4 yet. So we had 4 kids under 4 years old. And
they all had diapers at that time.
No,
they did.
Well.
No.
Because my son was a boy, and boys are hard.
Oh, man. I can't even. I'm already sweating.
But 4 of them, I think it was 3 of them got potty trained at the same time.
Yeah, so my oldest 3, they all potty trained at the same time. So Patience was like 18 months old and she's potty trained, fully potty trained. I'm like, so we went from all the diapers to hardly any, which is great.
Pretty quick.
But I think the thing was we were with kids our whole lives, so we kind of understood that discipline is love. And so if you aren't disciplining your kids, I'm not saying beating your kids, but if you're not in a structured home, they're going to go crazy when they're about 12 or 13. And it's going to be very difficult to get things back on track. You can. I'm not saying you can't, but you can. So we understood the importance of consistency and routine with our kids. Not that we're perfect at it by any means at all. But we knew if we said it, we had to do it. Yeah. So if we said, you do that again, this is what's going to happen, that has to happen, or they're not going to trust you.
Even if you said it out of kind of...
You didn't really want to do it,
right?
But if I say it, I have to do it.
Yep.
Yeah. It's real easy to get distracted when you think about discipline and think about punishment and get so concerned about that. But really, it's not so much that kids need punishment, but they need structure and discipline. Because the focus has to be on guiding their behavior and not on punishing them for what they did wrong. Because that's not the most important thing.
Okay, can you speak to that, please? Because me and the paddle have become really good friends the past 4 weeks now. For a while. Cause
not you and the paddle, the kids and the paddle.
No, but the paddle and I have come to an understanding that it's either going to be attached to my hip or it's going to be in the car.
When my kids were little, we had a paddle in his office, we had a paddle in the diaper bag, we had a paddle in the car, we had a paddle at my mom's house, we had a paddle at his mom's house. We had a paddle everywhere.
Paddles for all.
Judah tells, we always joke about it, but Judah, my mother-in-law, who is so gracious to me.
Oh, she's so sweet.
Oh my gosh, she'll see my face, and she's like, honey, you do remember Judah told me that he had 3 spankers. He had 3 spankers, Nana. And I'm just like, I know that this will pass. I just don't remember them being this difficult.
Well, all kids are not the same.
Right.
So you can't compare the discipline that you have to provide for one kid with what you have to provide for the others. Because God made each one of your kids different. He made each one of our kids different. And they needed different kinds of structure and support and discipline. And we did use a paddle a lot. We did spank our kids. But really, I think that's most effective when they're younger. I think sometimes people hold on to that as their only tool of discipline and structure. But your kids need to grow out of that. They're designed to do that. And so you have to look for other ways to discipline them and guide their behavior. As they learn to, as they grow and develop mentally and physically, then you need to be able to speak to them and help them to start to regulate their own behavior and understand what they're doing, and the natural consequences are always the easiest. Because if you do something and your toy breaks, well, then that's because you didn't do what we said, and now you've used it the wrong way, and now it's broken. So your natural consequence is you don't have that toy anymore. Yeah. It's broken. And that doesn't always work, because sometimes you're dealing with other people and there's not a natural consequence, and you need to spank them, and you need to do other types of discipline and things like that. But
also for one child, spanking is going to work, and for another child, just sitting them down is going to do the trick, because that's what their personality is and things like that. One of my kids, I could spank them till I was blue in the face. I did not, but I could have, and that would do nothing. But if I would have sent them to the room to be by themselves, that was more...
That was more detrimental.
Mm-hmm. One of the things I had heard was when you discipline, the intent is to break the will to have behavior modification, but not break the spirit. Because you're trying to help them understand and guide, but you're not wanting to crush them, and the intent's never to
because
crush.
God made them that way for a reason.
Right.
We don't know what it is when they're 4. You know what I mean? But we know that God has created that in them for a reason.
Right.
And we don't want to destroy what God has put in there for a reason. But we do need them to have certain behaviors, because it is not okay for your child to bite someone. Right?
Amy knows that well with 2 of my babies. 2 of my babies.
I have been bit by your babies. I think all of them.
That's actually how I met Laura.
Where did they get that from?
I don't know. I don't know. But that's actually how I met Laura. I remember she was coming out of the minister kids class, and she's talking to a friend, which I didn't know at the time, and she's like, "Yeah, some girl's kid bit my kid on the cheek," and I'm like, "Was his name Judah?" And she was like, "Yeah, how'd you know?" I was like, "That's my kid." And she was like, "Hi, I'm Laura." I was like, "Hi, I'm Megan. So nice to meet you. I'm so sorry."
But see, this is a normal behavior kids go through, but you have to train them that that's not okay.
Right.
Like.
And what was the advice you told me? Because I remember saying, "Amy, I don't know what to do." And you were like, "What'd you tell me?"
I don't even remember.
You said, "Bite him back."
I probably did.
You told me bite him back?
Because they were like 2, right?
Yeah, he was still, and honestly, I think it was
Judah was the worst.
Judah was bad. I mean, because he was so fixated on his passy, and once we took the passy away,
and he couldn't express himself. Because when they're that old, they can't tell you what they need or what they want or what hurts them or what makes them feel bad. They can't tell you those things because they haven't articulated that yet. So before that, biting is like a normal kid behavior. Not an okay kid behavior, but a normal kid behavior. Right. So you just have to figure out what works. And for Judah, I think that was what worked.
And he stopped biting. I mean, I finally bit him enough. And obviously I bit him to the point where, I mean, it was a little painful. And I probably left marks. And I would always tell Amy, like, I bit Judah the other day. He might still have bite marks. She's like, "Girl, it's okay." But, I mean, he finally stopped. And
but now he's how old? 7?
Judah, oh my goodness, he's going to be 9.
No, he's not.
Yes, he is. It's inappropriate. I know. It's not.
But he's not biting kids now. You know what I mean? And he grew out of it because it's
Praise
a normal.
the Lord.
No, it's a normal kid behavior, but they do grow out of it if you're consistent and you keep doing the same thing. You know, like if I tell you I'm going to do this and you do it again, I'm going to do this.
Right.
Yeah, I'm bad about that, especially driving in the car. I'm really bad about.
Oh, girl, you got to stop that car. If you do whatever you say.
I did the other day finally, and to her, the look on her face, she was stunned. It was Sloan. Sloan is my precious. She's also my other biter.
She's not the instigator,
Sloan,
though.
No.
Thank you. No, she's not.
Sloan is strong-willed and will not be deterred, which is a godly trait, like Amy's talking about. But when it's guided and directed for the Lord, and the problem is right now it's not. And it's rooted in rebellion and what she's doing. Yeah. But once that's pointed to the Lord, I mean, think about Paul. Paul was killing the church off. He was one of the most strong-willed people in the Bible.
Well, and I'm very strong-willed too.
What?
I am. I'm very strong-willed.
And but once it's channeled for the Lord, there's nothing that can dissuade them.
That's right. And so it's just getting them to that point of guiding them to the Lord. But when they're 3, they're not concerned about guiding to the Lord, but you have to still be concerned about the behavior.
Right.
So you have to guide the behavior when they're younger so that when they're older, their whole personality is guided towards the Lord. And it's very difficult because it's different for every kid. But discipline is doing what you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do it.
That was my next question and I wanted to go back to what Josh had said because it was so beautifully packaged. I can't repeat it.
That's because he's a doctor.
That's why we trust him. He's a doctor.
Okay,
yeah, that's
and
what my shirt says.
Full disclosure, Josh he was also a principal. He was an elementary school principal for a time.
Yeah, has a doctorate in education. I don't know all the words. You have to say them.
Yes. So can you share your knowledge on that in a biblical standpoint? When we first started kind of down this road of discussion, you said discipline was what and punishment was what?
Well, discipline is about guiding students, or not students, but kids. I get stuck in the whole education thing sometimes.
You're fine. It's good.
But it's about guiding kids toward the path that they're supposed to go down. It's not about punishing them or finding an appropriate punishment for that. It's about finding the punishment that will help guide them. That's the purpose of the punishment. The punishment is not the end result. The end result should be the change in behavior, the way that they've made a different choice the next time. So one of the things that also helped us as our kids were multiplying and becoming overwhelming with some of their behavior we had to start looking for what kind of positive traits do we want to see in our family, and how can we start to develop those. So we looked for things, we worked on things like kindness and being helpful. And so sometimes I believe... I
still even use kindness in the nursery. I'm like, you have to have kind hands.
Children get get so tired of hearing, you don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, don't do that. And that's because as an overwhelmed parent, that's what we do. Yeah. We just tell them all the things we don't want them to do.
As a what parent?
Overwhelmed.
Oh, yeah.
It's like the normal place that parents live is the land of the overwhelmed.
The valley of overwhelmedness.
Yes.
I'm reading Heinz Feet High Places, and instead of the valley of humiliation, which I do feel that, we're in the valley of overwhelmed. Yes.
Mm-hmm. So you can get so stuck on, this is what we're not going to do in our family, and this is how we do not treat people.
We do say this is how we are going to treat people in our family.
So sometimes you have to flip that around and start saying, this is how we're going to treat people with kindness. And when someone needs help, we're going to go help them.
And that's everyone in your family. So that includes me and Josh. So if we're saying in our family we're going to treat each other with kindness, that means we have to treat each other with kindness. So that's us with each other and us with our kids.
And you started this when they were...
Colin was a baby. I mean, little. So
it didn't take us very long to get overwhelmed.
You said the word when our kids kept multiplying.
Well, awesome. once you get 3, you're outnumbered.
You're outnumbered,
right?
Yeah.
You're like,
so this is going downhill. And we knew from past experience with kids that we have to deal with things when they happen. Yeah. So we can't wait till they're 6 and they have like the worst attitude in the world and they hit people all the time and all this kind of stuff. They're still going to happen, but like we have to start when they're young, because if we don't, they're going to just not know what they need to do and not know where they need to go.
A lot of young children's behavior comes from a root of selfishness, because I think all of us are selfish. That's the way we're born, to be selfish.
And oddly enough,
what we want.
Yeah.
So,
one scripture says that too, right? The inner motives of the heart.
Right.
So if we know that that's a major area that we're all going to have, then if you look for ways, well, what do you use to combat selfishness? Well, we want to help someone else, look for someone else's needs. So it was very important for us to help in that land of the overwhelmed and to deal with selfishness, to make sure that our kids were actively involved in helping other people, helping around the house. We were involved in ministry. When we would go to church, they would do things to help us at church that were really helping other people, whether it's setting up a chair, whether it's cleaning up something, taking out the trash.
Because when our kids were little, we weren't here.
Right, I was about to say, y'all were in Conroe.
We were in Conroe, and he was the principal of the school there.
Really cool church right there.
And so there was not a nursery during Sunday school. There was not like a 2-year-old Sunday school class either. So I created one because my kids were all that age and I needed one.
You needed one? I need a moment.
So if I needed one, someone else does too. So I just said, I'm going to be the 2-year-old Sunday school teacher, and babies are welcome.
Can you talk just for a second on that?
Can I get a point about something Josh said first though?
Yes.
When you bring them in though and they're helping, how do you manage the inefficiencies at that point though? Because it actually slows you down, right?
Oh, a lot of times it does.
And I see that in ourselves, and I see it in a lot of our friends. They'll try it until it slows them down. And then when it slows them down, they abandon it because like I can just get it done faster if I just do it myself.
So true.
Well, sometimes if time becomes critical, you do have to step in and finish it up. But then you have to make a note. I need to start earlier next time. So you can't completely abandon it. But if you're trying to set up something or clean up something and your kids are not,
and you have to leave or something,
are not being efficient with their use of time, it doesn't mean that it means they need more training and more practice,
right?
Not less.
Because you don't want your kids to leave your house and not know how to do things, right?
Right.
And they
won't just pick it up.
They won't. They don't know how to wash dishes. If they don't know how to wash dishes when they leave your house, they're not going to learn it. They're just going to use paper stuff and not learn to cook and not learn to do all the things. And their bathrooms are going to be disgusting and their rooms are going to be disasters, which my kids' rooms are disasters right now. So, it just happens. But they do know how to clean it up. So if they don't learn that in your home, chances are they're not going to learn that out of your home either. So it's very important to train them to know those things. And I think chores are important for them to know those things and to learn how to get along. So
when did y'all actually start like what we'll call chores?
What do we call them when we first did it? Responsibilities. Yeah, these are your responsibilities. So they each had a responsibility list for the day. And it's simple things like you're going to get up, you're going to brush your teeth, you're going to make your bed. I didn't really do clean your room because that's just what I tell you to. But, and then we started doing 3 kids are on dishes every day and 3 kids are on laundry every day. And they're split up.
Because we do laundry and dishes every
single day.
All day long.
Every single day.
Yes. All day long.
See, as I told her, she's like, the laundry never ends. I was like, we got 6 butts in the house. It's never going to end.
Oh, never.
It's not as long as we have these people.
There are 9 people in our house. There's always laundry to do. There are always dishes to do. But if we keep it up, it doesn't get too overwhelming. I mean, it's always overwhelming, but it's not too bad.
It's not the valley of overwhelm.
It's not the valley of overwhelm anymore. No.
Yes.
But I think it was important for us to have them in groups of 3 for those big jobs because that teaches them to work together as well.
Teamwork.
Yeah.
And I really don't step in when they're fighting about a job they're doing because they need to work it out.
Yep.
I mean, I do step in if it gets...
Well, if it's
the knife comes out.
If a fist comes out, I step in.
Well, yeah, absolutely. It's just like right now, I mean, Sophie and Judah, for me, it's really hard because the gap. Like, there's 5 years difference between them. So Sophie's 10, you know, and Judah's 8, about to be 9. They should be able to do their own laundry.
Absolutely,
they should be able to wash the dishes.
And they can.
And they can, but they're not. And I mean...
Well, my kids are almost 21, 19, 18, 17, 14, and 11, and they don't do it on their own. They do it when I tell them to.
Okay.
And I think I had to get out of, well, they need to do it on their own. They're not going to.
They do.
Their brains aren't developed to the point of, I mean, you've had child psychology classes, right?
Yeah.
Their brains aren't developed to an adult stage until a boy, 24.
And girls are like 17 to 21.
Yeah. So if their brains aren't all the way developed until then, they don't have all the capacity of an adult until then. So we just have to work on training them to do the job correctly. And then when they get old enough, they'll have that initiative on their own. Because we were married, I don't know, a good while before I got laundry under control. And that was just the 2 of us and like 1 or 2 kids. Yep. And that's because my brain, I just couldn't do it. You know, and so when I think back to when I was as old as my kids are, I wasn't functioning like an adult yet. Yeah. Even after we got married. I mean, I was, but you know what I mean? Like,
because you said you only had like a year together before you had a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But even at that point, they got married at 20, so she still wasn't even functioning.
Still wasn't.
I wasn't all the way,
20s.
like, you know, I just didn't have the capacity to have the initiative to do it on my own.
Yeah.
I mean, I could see it and go, oh, I should do that.
But she did know how to do those things.
That's
because her parents had taught her how to be helpful, how to do chores, to do things.
Yeah. Because I was the house cleaner when I was a kid.
In that valley or plateau of overwhelmness, though, how do y'all stay connected? Because a lot of times the couple gets lost when there's that many kids, like ours too, right?
Well, it's one of the things that we did early on was our kids were going to have an early bedtime. And they still have an early bedtime for the ages that they are. And then sometimes they just go into their own part of the house because it's important for us to not be completely exhausted when the kids go to sleep. So when our kids were a little bit younger, and I'm not a lot, like a year or 2 ago, we still had kids going to bed at 8 o'clock every night when we were at home.
That didn't mean they went to sleep. That mean they went to their room and the door was shut. And mom and dad had time that we could actually converse with each other without someone right here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and as far as staying connected with your spouse, I think the biggest thing is time. When you're not together, you can't stay connected.
Right.
But even with time, it's having that capacity to have those conversations when you need to have
and
them.
actually tell them what you need and what you're feeling. They aren't mind readers, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I can't expect Josh to know what I need if I'm not telling him. Because some days it's like, I really need you to make sure the kids wash the dishes. And I cannot. Even now, like the other day, I think I said, I need you to get somebody to wash the dishes, and it can't be me, and I can't be in charge of it. Like 2 days ago.
It's like I'm done.
I can't think anymore, you know? And so...
So part of, staying connected is learning how to communicate with your spouse. And I think that we've learned a few things. Sometimes Amy tries to be real kind and polite. And at first, I'm pretty sure I didn't read all those signs. So when she would say, like, hey, when you have a chance, can you do this? She doesn't mean
I really
when you have that at all.
It was so sweet a few days ago.
Unless you're doing something that's, critical to life on the entire planet, please get up and do this right now.
But that's changed because we talked about it the other day. But I think before we even knew we were going to come on the podcast, that when all the kids were little, I would just tell them to do it. I wouldn't say, hey, when you get a minute, I would be, can you please go do this? And now, I'm still kind about it, but it's not so.
Would you please? If you have, check yes or no.
Please, would you go do that?
Go do it
right now.
Go do it right now.
Because when you have, seriously, 4 babies that you're taking care of, you need help, and he's not going to know what I need. He's not going to know I need the laundry to put in the dryer unless I tell him, because he hadn't been there all day. He works away from home. Well, not away, but he doesn't work at home, so he's not going to know that there's a load in the washer that's souring because I hadn't had a chance to put it in the dryer. So I have to communicate that with him.
Because we had 3 meltdons in a referee match that needed to happen.
We had a kid tackle somebody and knock their tooth out, That only happened once.
Can you?
Only happened once.
They learned.
Well, it was already loose.
That's awesome.
We left the tooth on the wall just so they knew.
Oh, man. No, I know that you can speak to this, Amy, because your involvement with ministry, and especially with the babies. But can you talk just a second about, and I don't know if you ever dealt with it, but mom guilt, feeling bad, I shouldn't have to ask for this. I'm a strong mom, or I shouldn't have to ask. So how do you, how could you, speak to that, saying it's okay to have a moment. It's okay to fall apart. It's okay.
It's okay to have a moment. It's not okay to have a year. So if you are struggling in a moment, everyone struggles in a moment. There's always a time when we are not enough, because we're not supposed to be enough. We're supposed to be enough in Him. You know what I mean? He is the one that strengthens us. He's the one that guides us. He's the one that leads us. So if we're having a moment in ourselves, it happens. But we can't let it stay in that moment. So if we're having a meltdown because somebody puked on you, somebody pooped on you, and then someone slapped you in the face, and they're all under 3, yes, you're having a moment, but that moment's going to pass. That moment's not going to stay there. But you have to be able to realize that this moment isn't my life. This moment is this moment. So I have to be strong enough, and you are, even if you don't feel like it, strong enough to change your shirt, wipe off your face, and get back to it. It's hard because we always feel guilt because, am I doing enough? Am I not doing enough? It doesn't matter. You're doing what you're called to do. So if you feel like, oh, my kids, they're not getting enough outside time, they don't have to go outside. It's okay. Are my kids learning enough, around the house? They are. They're learning valuable things around the house. Those kind of things. It's am I training my kids enough? We're not going to really know, but we can trust that God can work in them in whatever it is, because He loves them more than we do. So even if we're not enough, He is enough, and He's going to show them what they need to do. But mom guilt is a huge thing. Everyone feels it, I think. If you are a mom and you have a kid, which you have to if you're a mom, you're going to be guilty at some point. You're going to feel it. And it's usually from comparison. And comparison is the thief of joy. Because I have 6 kids, you have 4. Our lives are not the same. And so if I come in and see your beautiful home, and my home is right now, it's pretty disgusting because there's 8 kids there right now, I think. It's going to make me feel bad. But then I realize there's 8 kids in my house. It's all right if it's a mess. It's okay.
Well, and I have a control problem, so.
Oh, I don't have that problem.
It's not that great.
I have too many kids to have a control problem.
Yeah, well, yeah, you're speaking to my heart because I'm in this season right now and he said, I love that you brought that up, that comparison is the thief of joy. Mm-hmm. And I feel like I put these expectations on myself.
Yeah.
nobody's checking boxes.
Absolutely not.
Nobody's checking boxes.
So on social media, you see the highlight reel. You don't see the real life, you know?
Right.
And so you think, oh my gosh, there's
Or the piles of trash right behind the camera.
Yeah,
right?
you don't see that corner that they shoved everything into to take this beautiful picture. Because we've all done it, right? Like, oh, let me straighten the pillows on the couch so that it looks pretty.
Which
like
I have
yesterday, I
a pile of speaker gear in the corner right behind the camera.
And you have a box over there too.
And I have a box with the rest of the setup right behind that you can't see.
Just don't double check, but Judah might have his paper towels underneath. Okay, good. So when we did milk and cookies, Judah was,
Judah keeps a trash can because he keeps getting allergies, and so he's sneezing and coughing, and so he keeps a stash of them right under that desk.
No, but that I
cleaned it all out.
You're so right.
Yeah, because we don't see the real life, and we think that what they show on social media is the real life. I would guess to say 95% of the time it is not the real life.
Or
it is the moment
because they're trying to live
it's
such
the moment,
a facade.
you know. And yes, moments are great, and that's what we want to share. But there are hard times. There are times when you're sitting on the floor of your closet crying.
I've been there with chocolates.
Yeah. Hey,
I've been there.
I'll tell you how to hide them so they don't get them.
Sloan always
important.
It's important.
You put it in a broccoli box in the freezer, and they don't ever touch it.
Never find it. Oh man, no, but thank you for sharing that. There's one more thing that I want to, and this may have to go into part 2, but Owen and Sophia have something in common,
and Jocelyn as well.
And I totally forgot about Jocelyn. Mm-hmm. Sorry, not that I forgot about her, but I forgot that she had it. So if you would, and I don't know how brief we could make this, but share when he was diagnosed and what you felt like the Lord told you and where he is now.
Okay. So my daughter Jocelyn, who is 19, and my son Owen, who is 11, both have dealt with epilepsy, which is a seizure condition. Jocelyn got diagnosed when she was 5. Owen got diagnosed when he was 3. So when I'm going to share about Owen because he's the more recent one, so we have it all fresh in our minds. But
when him and Sophie were like very close. Mm-hmm. How old is Owen?
11.
Yeah.
And Sophie's 10.
Yep.
So
she was diagnosed at 18 months.
Yeah, she was younger, but we had dealt with it before with Jocelyn. So when Owen was 3, he was staying with some friends for the evening because we actually went on a date. We don't get to do that often, especially when they're little. But he was staying with some friends that I completely trust with my kids. Like, there was no question in my mind that anything had happened. And they called and they said, hey, Owen is acting weird. He's not responding to us. He's just staring and all these things. I'm like, and they said something else. I'm like, that's a seizure. We're on our way. We were probably maybe 10 minutes away, I guess. I said, call an ambulance if you're uncomfortable. We're on our way. It's a seizure. If he turns blue, call an ambulance, you know. And so we got there as quick as we could. We go in. I'm like, yep, it's a seizure. And so we loaded him up in the car, and I rode to the hospital with him in my lap because I was like, if we call an ambulance, it's going to be longer. And so we get to the emergency room, and I go, I'm pretty sure my son just had a seizure. My daughter has seizures. I know what they look like. And they go, okay. So they checked him out. They go, he seems fine now. You know how they do. He seems fine now, so they send him home. So you need to make an appointment with a neurologist. A pediatric neurologist appointment is at least 6 months away, if not longer. So I'm like, okay. So I called my daughter's neurologist that we had with her because we love them so much. And we
Wasn't it Bluebird Clinic?
No, we're already at...
you were already with Dr.
Ballman.
Yeah, Ballman. Yeah. Okay.
So I called to set up an appointment, but the appointment's like, I think it was like 5 months away or something because I think his first seizure was in August. And so we couldn't get an appointment until like May. I'm pretty sure. And so I'm like, okay. And we knew the drill. It's like, okay, we just have to track things and see what happens. You know, we're okay. But they didn't give us like anything. So they didn't give us a rescue med. So if he had a seizure longer than 5 minutes, you give him something. They didn't give us that, which the emergency room should have prescribed that, but they didn't. Hindsight, you know. But so we're like, okay, we'll just see how it goes, you know, kind of thing. Well, then he had another one. And the next one was, I guess, scarier because he didn't come back as quick as sometimes they do. And so they transported us to Memorial Hermann. That's our favorite neurology hospital for kids. They transferred us there, and So we're there, and he's okay, but he had 3 seizures, so they were kind of watching him, in the ER. And they said, okay, we're just going to send you home, and y'all can come back to do testing. And I said, I'm not comfortable with that. And the doctor's like, what? And I go, I'm not comfortable leaving. And there's like, what do you mean? I go, I want to say inpatient so we can have the testing done quickly. And he said, well, we can't. I go, you can't? Where's your supervisor?
He's like, I'm not leaving.
I'm not leaving the hospital until we have some testing done. Because at this point, we don't know. Like, we don't know if there's a tumor. We don't know if there's something else going on. We don't know if there's a blood disorder. There hadn't even been blood work done. So we don't know anything.
Well, and the frequency of them's getting shorter, which means something's changing.
Yeah.
And the amplitude's getting stronger. And so
so we're like, something's going on, and we don't know what it is. And I'm not comfortable leaving here without medication, without testing done, all these things. And the doctor's like, well, I have to get approval. I'm like, go get it.
Go find it.
And I don't usually do that. I'm not usually forceful like that. And my brother and his wife are sitting there like, and I'm like, I'm sorry, guys. I just felt like I had to say it. And they're like, it's your kid. You got to say it.
Right.
And so they did get us to be inpatient, and they did do the EEG and the MRI, CAT scan, blood work, all kinds of stuff the next day, I think. Mm-hmm. And so then they just tell you, well, you need to see the neurologist. Mm-hmm. And so we're sitting there praying, and I sent a text to several people. I'm like, please pray that they get an appointment with a neurologist before May. And they said, you have an appointment next week?
Praise God.
And I said, oh, you have no idea how that makes me feel, And so we go in, and they prescribe a certain medication, which is known to work with seizures, but it did not work with my daughter. And I said, can we start on the one that worked with my daughter? Because they're blood relatives, they have the same parent. Yeah. If it worked on her, wouldn't it make sense that it would work on him? And they said yes, but this is the one we like to start on because it has less side effects and all those kind of things. And I said,
if you don't know, there's like 5 families of seizure
Sophie
meds.
started on all 4.
And there's 5 different families, and each different family addresses it a different way. And so what she's talking about is they were trying to start in one family, and she wanted to be in a different family.
Didn't they want to start you with Keppra?
Yeah.
And Keppra has a tendency to alter their behavior and their mood.
And it just doesn't work on everyone. Because also, even if the seizure is known to work with this certain seizure medication, this kind of seizure can work with this medication, this child's brain can have a certain chemistry that it doesn't work. Right. You never really know, and it's like you just got to try it and see if it works. So we went, I feel like I'm talking a lot, sorry. So we went to the doctor, they started us on Keppra, and I said, I will give it 2 weeks. I said, because if we're having seizures every day and this is not working, I'll give it 2 weeks, and then we can try another thing. Is that okay? And the doctor's like, sure. So the 2 weeks came and went. Did not help at all. We're having multiple seizures a few days a week. And so I'm calling the doctor, and I'm not getting a call back.
Yeah, it's
and
the waiting.
That doesn't do a mama's heart very good. And so I don't know why I was in Houston, but I was up at the medical center near it. I said, I'm just going to go to the office. And I walked in the office. I was by myself. I didn't even have Owen with me. And I walked in the office and I said, I've been trying to call for 2 weeks. The medication that he's on is not working, and I want to change, and I need to see the doctor. And they said, you don't have an appointment? I was like, I do not have an appointment, but I need to see the doctor. And they're like, ma'am, I can't get you in. I was like, so then the tears started coming. I was like, I need to see the doctor, and I'm bawling, and they're like, okay. And so they, imagine that I saw the doctor in 10 minutes. And so the doctor came in, and I was like, telling her all the things, and I said, listen, this medication isn't working. Can we please try the one that worked with my daughter? Because with my daughter, we went through, I'm not exaggerating when I say this, 15 different
I believe it.
Epilepsy medications to find the one that actually worked. So there's a lot of things. But anyway, so I said, can we try that one? Can we just try it? And they said, yes, we'll turn in the prescription today, and you can have it. So I was like, okay. So they prescribed that, and he started having a decrease in seizures, which was great. But you have to go up and down and all that kind of stuff with medication. So we spent years not really controlled on medication. He would be okay for a while, and then he'd have one. And then he had an 18-minute seizure.
How old was he?
5, maybe?
I thought 4
or 5.
It feels like an eternity, doesn't it?
And here's the thing. God is so good even when bad things are happening. So he was in bed. Like, he was asleep for the night. And we were just hanging out in the living room, and Tamber said, I needed to go see what time it was on the boys' clock in their room. I was like, that doesn't make sense. But she walked in. It doesn't make sense, but the Lord had to.
That happened. I shared that here.
The Lord had to, have told her, go in the boys' room. And she saw him seizing, and she yelled right away. We were in there, 10 seconds, and we watched him seize for 5 minutes, and then we gave him the emergency med that's supposed to stop it, pretty much instantly. Did nothing. Called 911 1 minute after we gave the emergency drug. So we're at 6 minutes of us seeing him seize at this point. And so we called the paramedics, and they got there at...
Mind you, if you don't know, you could be seizing for minutes or hours prior to that before anybody saw it. Because we've had a couple similar instances with Sophie.
And you have no idea.
You have no idea how long the time is.
You have no idea.
And the 5-minute mark, if you don't know, once you pass 5 minutes, there can be permanent damage to the brain because of the electrical activity. That's why the 5-minute mark is crucial.
That's why it's such a big deal.
And that's why the seizure meds actually disassociates the brain activity for the rest of the body, except for the heart and the lungs.
And I want to say they used to tell us 3 minutes, but they changed it to 5 because it's we don't know exactly when it started, and from this point when you actually see it.
Yeah. So I think the ambulance got there at 11 minutes that we saw him seize. We don't know before. Yeah. And they gave him something to stop the seizure. It did nothing.
So he's already had 2 of diazepam.
He had 1 diazepam, and then he had Ativan.
Yeah, wow.
Which is strong.
Extremely strong.
So he finally stopped seizing at what we saw 18 minutes. And so we were transporting to the hospital. On the way to the hospital, he had another seizure. They gave him more Ativan. Ativan is strong stuff, but...
the PAN family is the meds that they give to keep people in comas. Mm-hmm. When they do a medically induced coma, they give them the PAN family, which is Ativan, diazepam, there's a couple of them.
Yeah.
And the only reason we know this is because we've walked the same walk. And so the PAN family is what they do to kind of put people in a coma.
The PAN family sends you to Never Never Land.
It does. It really does. It really does. So we're transporting to the hospital, and they're like, well, we need to send you. I'm like, of course you need to send me up to Houston.
Just keep the ambulance rolling. Just keep going. Don't stop.
You would think, but they had to stop and assess them first. And so they sent us to Memorial Hermann again, and that was a hard stay. So I'm there with him. Josh was at home with the other kids, and so when I get there, it's probably 1 o'clock in the morning, and I'm having doctors and nurses come in and out, and they're like, he's not waking up. I'm like, we gave him diazepam, and y'all gave him 2 Ativans. He's asleep.
He's going to be out.
And they're like, no, we don't like it. We don't like that he is not awake. I'm like, oh, Father, I need peace in my heart, because that could get real ugly and scary real quick.
Right.
If my mind would have went there that this is not okay, I don't know where I would have been. I was like, okay, Father, you're in control. This is okay. I need peace in my heart that this is okay. And so the doctors, so we didn't sleep that night. I didn't sleep that night.
Of course
because,
not.
They're in and out every 15 minutes because they're like, this is not okay. He's not waking up, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, he had diazepam and 2 shots of Ativan. I think this is okay. And so, I probably said that 50 times that night. And I was saying it to myself too. So the morning came, he wakes up for the day, and they're like, he can't eat until he is 4 or 5. He can't eat until we can know that he's walking fine, talking fine. And I'm like, he had diazepam, 2 Ativans. And
they were afraid of him choking, his throat.
Yeah, they thought he would have another seizure and aspirate.
Yeah.
and things like that. Or they were afraid that his airway couldn't control itself, clear itself. And so then we wait. And his speech is not okay. And his walking is not okay. And I said, and so the next shift of doctors come in. I was like, I can't remember. I think it was 5. I was like, he is 5. He's hungry. Like, you're telling me I can't feed him? And they're like, this doctor said, why aren't we feeding him? I was like, they said if his speech was slurred and his walking wasn't normal, that he couldn't eat. And he's like, but we gave him diazepam and 2 Ativan.
Thank you. Thank you.
They're like, order his food. I'm like, yes, sir. And so by this time, it's probably 10 in the morning. He had a hamburger, French fries, a salad, pudding, ice cream.
Sophie loves going to the hospital because she's like, can I eat now? I'm like, she loads up.
I mean, it's the best hospital because it's room service. They just bring it to you.
It's awesome.
And he had like peanut butter crackers and he had all this stuff. And he's like sitting there and he's like,
were you on the PEMU?
We were.
Right.
Yes, we were.
Oh man, those
nurses are.
They're the best ones in the
hospital. They're the
hospital.
best in the whole hospital.
We
were there, but we weren't actually connected to a EEG.
Okay. Yet? They hadn't connected him yet.
Well,
because they
didn't need it because he was having so many other issues.
Yeah, so they were trying to like pare down the things before.
It would skew the data.
Yeah,
I figured, but as soon as he came to, they would start at least trying the process.
Well, so the thing was, he hadn't come to until that morning, is what they were saying, because he was asleep. So, and we go without anything, because...
It was the middle of the night. You just left.
I mean, it was like 9 o'clock at night. I left. I don't even know what I was wearing. I mean, something, but... So I'm there. So Josh comes back that day with clothes and things like that. But we had no toys. Can you imagine a 5-year-old in the hospital without anything?
Oh, but they're so good about that.
They're so good. So the child life people came in and they're like, what do you need? I'm like, Legos, please. Legos. Anything. And so they could do this. And so through all this, he's not walking well. His speech is still slurred for
a long time.
It's like 2 days. His speech is still slurred. And they're like, we're still in the hospital. And they said, we need to up his dose a lot. I'm like, do it, because we're here. If you up a dose at home, you have to, it's like weeks,
Yeah.
But in the hospital, they can do it 1 dose,
right.
And so I was like, let's do it. And so they upped his dose. And they're like, this may cause slurred speech. So I'm like, here we are,
We'll live in this state.
Yeah, so, and I think he had one more seizure when we were at the hospital. Before they upped the dose. So they upped the dose, waited a day, I think, and then we came home. But there was a lot of times where fear was creeping, And so when Jocelyn was going through all the procedures and stuff, we memorized everyone. God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and love and a sound mind.
Right. And
I would say it over and over again. The kids would say it. God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and love and a sound mind. And if I don't have a sound mind when my son is going through this, I can't help him.
Right.
But God has given me that. So we go home. He's still a little shaky. I remember Josh carried him out of that hospital stay. Mm-hmm. Just walking was hard. It was like he was kind of walking into the walls. And they're like, that could be the seizure, that could be the medication, we're not sure, And that's hard to go home, not sure. So we went home. The medicine seemed to be working for a while, and then it wasn't. So then he started having seizures a lot again. So I don't know if I'm going to say daily, but at least twice a week he would have a seizure.
It's consistent, yeah.
It's a lot.
That is a lot.
So I had our neurologist's cell phone number. So that I could call her.
I have Olga. Yeah. Olga on text. Speed dial.
So,
they text us periodically.
Yeah, she texts us. How's Sophie doing?
So,
so when did he come out of that? Because I know that you have had victory.
Okay, so at 3, he started having seizures. At 5, he had the 18-minute seizure. He had seizures periodically all the way up I don't know, until he was about 10. And so then right after he turned 10, this weird thing happened with the insurance company and the neurologist office and the pharmacy, and we couldn't get his medication. Like, the insurance wasn't going to cover it. We had to go see the doctor. The doctor couldn't get us in. They wouldn't prescribe it without all this stuff. Script. All this stuff. And the pharmacy won't give us a month, so we're like, we have 5 days left. And we're like, what are we going to do? And then fear tries to creep in again. Yeah. But God has not given us a spirit of fear.
Right.
But a power and love is not mine. So we're like, okay, Father, if this is the time you're going to heal Owen, we're going to put all our faith in it. And we know you can. And we know you will. And we're trusting and believing that you have Owen's best interests at heart. And you are going to heal him. But the thing that had started happening was Owen was believing for his own healing at the same time. Like, he always knew that God could heal him. He knew that God was the healer. I mean, we have said that over and over again. We knew it. So we ran out of medication. And we couldn't get into the neurologist for 8 weeks. They wouldn't do a teledoc or anything. We needed to be in person in the office, so it was 8 weeks. So they gave us a new neurologist because he was fairly controlled then. He wasn't having seizures, so we got a student neurologist. You know how that goes. And so it was a new one, and he came in, and we're talking, and I said, so he knew we hadn't had medication for a while. I was like, I'm not against medication, but maybe he doesn't need it anymore. And the doctor said, maybe he doesn't need it anymore. He said, we're going to do a 24-hour EEG and we'll see where we are.
Yep. Since he had already been off of the medication for so long, they can do an EEG without medication.
Right.
Which is more accurate.
And compare it to the other baseline to see the progress.
With medication. Right. So we go in for the 24-hour EEG. It was quick. They got us in fast. Mm-hmm. I want to say it was like 2 weeks later, we're in the EMU.
Yeah.
And so we're there, and I want to say this too. Owen is the happiest kid you've ever met.
Yes.
At every hospital stay, he's having a party because he gets mom and dad to himself. He gets new toys because we always buy some few new things.
You get your little.
We get some new pajamas when we go to the hospital.
When it's a planned hospital stay.
When it's planned, we are prepared.
Yes.
Amy's very prepared.
Alexis actually got Sophie her last pajamas, and Sophie loves those pajamas. They're so soft. They're really sweet.
So we go to the EMU, have our 24-hour stay. And so if you have in my chart, you'll have the EEG date. Mm-hmm. And then if there's a seizure or anything, it's impressive. So we have probably 7 or 8. Impressive. So I think it had to be Mother's Day. On Mother's Day, I get a my chart thing, test results. I'm like, I don't have test results from my chart. And I open up, I'm like, I do have test results from my chart. It was normal. And so I'm sitting on the floor in the nursery, and I'm reading it, and I'm just, it's like, oh my gosh, it's normal.
I don't know how many times I've gone to Amy several times because she's always keeping up with stuff. Ours hasn't happened yet, but, she's been asking more and more, like, Mommy, when can I get off medicine? It's like, honey, you have to ask the Lord.
Yeah.
You have to ask the Lord that. We're just being obedient right now. Yeah. But when Amy shared that with me, that Owen had received his miracle, I was like, if he can do it for Owen, he can do it for Sophie.
Yes.
I didn't think it was going to get that emotional.
Sorry.
We've had those same days, though, because there's been 3 times at like until 3 or 4 in the morning, I'm having to crisscross Houston to get meds because the kids accidentally spill one of the bottles.
And you have to go find it.
You have to go find it, and they won't give it to you because it's out of cycle.
Yeah.
And then it's, stupid expensive.
And then you have to find a 24-hour pharmacy that carries it and has it in stock. And
then you have to get special waivers.
Oh, we've had that.
Because it's narcotics.
We've had that where he's had to leave the house at 10:30, 11 o'clock and go to Pearland and get, because immediately whenever we run out, I'm like, we don't have any medicine.
But then Pearland, they couldn't get it, and then I literally was driving around Houston till like 3 in the morning to 24-hour pharmacies, and then I got the cops called on me because it's a narcotic, that you're a controlled substance that you're
looking for.
At 3 o'clock in the morning.
At 3 o'clock in the morning. And so I stand there, and they come and they question me. They come with about to pull a gun on me, right?
Yeah.
Because and bless the pharmacist, right? She's just doing her job.
She doesn't know.
And she thinks I'm a crackhead, and I'm not a small person, right? And she's afraid I'm
it was me that called. It was me that called, and the one in Pearland. And I said, my husband's going to be there. And she was like, well, I'm about to leave my shift. There's going to be a new pharmacist. And I said, can you please put a note that Michael Spear is going to come pick up Sophia Spear's medicine? It's this medicine. It's this dosage. And she was like, yes, ma'am, I will. And he called, and he was like, they're not letting me get the medication. And I'm like, Michael, she hasn't had it for 2 doses. She can't miss, more. I'm going to, just because of time, I'm going to make sure.
But in those moments, it really does challenge you, because your natural reaction is get the med, right?
Yeah.
But then every time there's a still quiet voice, and it's, what's your faith in, Michael? And I'm like, you're right, Lord. And I called her. I was like, we're not getting the meds tonight. And she flipped out on me.
Well, sure.
And I mean,
because our mind is, this medicine is protecting my baby.
And
this medicine is
keeping them alive. But I had the exact same conversation that you said, because I told her, I said, babe, Sophie was his daughter before she was ever ours. And there was nothing that we did malicious or negligent that caused this. There was a true accident. And one time, they accidentally left the meds after a 72-hour EEG at the hospital.
Oh, geez.
And they disappeared. So we had none. And when Sophie takes 3 in the morning, or 2 in the morning and 3 at night, she takes 5. And we had none. And she was hot to trot, right?
Sure.
And it's like, I understand, but we can get it fixed tomorrow or the next day. But it's not going to be right now.
Yeah.
And in those moments, that's where the rubber meets the road, and where the Lord comes through, and the faithfulness of the Lord shows up, right?
So I got that My Chart result, and that wasn't the doctor, that was just the My Chart result. You know how they do,
Yep.
And so it comes to you before the doctor even gets it. So I ran to we're at church. It's a Sunday morning. I ran to Josh, and I was telling him, and I think he couldn't even understand what I was saying.
Yeah.
Because I was just like,
what do you mean?
And I was like, no, it's normal. And he's like, and so then he gets excited. So then I find Owen. He's like, bud, your EEG was normal. He goes, that means no medication. I go, that means no medication.
Oh, God. I don't know Sophie without meds. She's been on it since she was 18.
She's been on heavy narcotics since she's 18, and so we don't know what her personality
honestly,
looks like.
That's something that I'm having to learn, is that it depresses brain activity. It slows everything down. And so what she is normal. It's just what is expected of a 10-year-old. What I did at 10 years old, I wasn't taking, antidepressant medications to control epilepsy.
Well, and we can get into it when we can do an episode with just us on about medical stuff, and we can talk about that, because there's a lot that goes into it.
But
it changes the way you have to operate your family in some degrees, because
and you have to be on all the time.
There's no off.
My kids have to be on all the time.
Yeah.
Because I remember being at home with the kids by myself. We homeschool, so everyone's always there. And Owen had a seizure, and I go, I'm calling 911. I need your help. I need my shoes. I need a bag. I need Owen's clothes. I need this. And I need you to go to the door and wait for the ambulance. And my kids did it without question.
Well, and then in balancing that, where the other kids don't feel neglected, because you're having to both focus so much on one individual, because it's life-threatening.
Right, it is.
And then working with Judah and the twins, and where the one parent's at the hospital, the other one's with everybody else, and then they feel segregated. Everything feels, and the one that's at the hospital is making decisions that can be life-altering.
Yeah.
And
when it was during COVID, that made it really difficult because they couldn't come. Nobody could come. And so, I mean, we're trying to make sure that we stay on top of that with Judah to make sure that
he's older.
Well, and he was there. Like, he remembers everything. Judah has seen Sophie. He's actually called us.
Yeah.
Like, we would be in the kitchen or something, and he's like, Mom, Dad, Sophie's having a seizure.
But the faithfulness of the Lord is what's going to get him through and the girls through. It's not, we've talked to our kids some about it. They never felt neglected.
Right.
They never felt that way, but we were open with them, and I think it's important to share information in an age-appropriate level of what's going on. And so they were wanting to know what was going on with their brother. Yeah. They wanted to know every time. But they also knew that they were taken care of.
Yeah.
And even if things were up in the air for a while, they knew that they were okay. And they knew that we were okay. And they knew that God was in control. Because I think when kids know, even in the crazy, because it gets crazy, especially medical things, even in the crazy, when they know that they know that they know that God is in control,
there's peace.
There's peace.
Yeah, I think that it was very important for us to not try and hide anything from our kids, what was going on, especially with Jocelyn, who's our second oldest. She was in the hospital for several weeks. Over the course of a year, I think it was about 4 weeks, where she would be in and out of the hospital. And so the kids that were closer to her age, they would see her have seizures at the dining room table and things
Patients
like that.
that caught her head, from hitting the floor and hitting the table.
So I think it's important to really clearly explain as much as you can at an age-appropriate level what's happening and the appropriate biblical response, that we're going to trust God. We don't know everything. We're never going to know everything. We can't appear to our kids that we are the ultimate source of authority, or not authority, but of knowledge, and that we know everything. We're not God.
And we're not going to lie to them that we're not scared. We're not going to say we're not scared. It's like, we are.
It's
scared.
okay to be scared, but
we can still trust.
When you're scared and when you have that fear, we can still trust God, and we know that God is faithful, even when it doesn't feel like it.
Yeah,
because our feelings lie.
Wow. I was not expecting it to be that amazing. I always say that, but God has his way.
Yes.
And did we send you any questions?
No, and we didn't even know what we were going to talk about today. It was like, we're just going to come in and the Lord's going to tell us what to do.
We're just going to wing it.
Oh, you guys are just, Amy and Josh, so full of wisdom, especially when it comes to kids. And I know I've gone to Amy several times, especially when I've just been dealing with stuff. And she's just a friend. She's just been a constant friend, in all of my stages of motherhood and being married. So, thank you guys so much for being willing just to be open and candid, in the funny, the hard, and the just scary. So thank y'all so much for sharing. I have appreciated y'all being here so much.
You're very welcome.
Amy and Josh Davenport, amazing people. And this is the Chesed Marriage Podcast. Thank you for watching.